also talk about other places besides Alaska, but mostly it's Alaska themed.
Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. Dude, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Sunday's always a special day of the week, man.
You got the Sunday scaries going on right now? Not yet, maybe?
I did have like at least 3 cups of coffee with some kind of like, it's not Bailey's, but it was like 5 Wave or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. But it's like fancy Irish cream, like, it was like it came in a glass jar that has like one of those like metal like clamp on, clamp off.
Oh, yep. I'm following.
Kind of things.
I'm following. Yep.
And put that in the coffee. And so like the 3 cups of coffee started to give me the Sunday scares, but then the little bit of alcohol that was in the creamer kind of almost canceled.
Mellowed it out,
Yeah.
Even things out. Okay.
I went out for a little snow machine ride this morning.
Ripple Rivis, if you will.
I don't think I will. I don't know what the hell that means, but yeah, Ripple Rivis, dude. Yeah, that helped as well. It was nice to get out there.
Nice. A Ripple long stockings or something like that. I don't know. Just coming up with stuff over here. That's all I do. My son, he looks at me weird when I say some of the stuff I do. So, whether it's my 3-year-old son or recording a podcast, I'm going to pull it off,
But yeah, you would keep being yourself. Don't ever stop.
I'm not stopping. Thanks for asking. So, dude, we were talking about the weather in Alaska. And can you fill us in? What are we talking about, my guy?
Yeah, it is warm. I think the story across the entire country is, it's, and if you look it down in Homer, Alaska, the grass is green. It looks like it's early summer.
You said country, and I just want to make sure you meant in Alaska, right?
No, I mean the whole country. There's just a big weather news.
Oh, yes.
Firstly, of which is basically the system that you guys in Atlanta have bringing you that cold weather is the same, like that's connected to the system that's bringing us the warm weather. If you it's just like a giant system that all of North America is getting affected by, and it gives us the warm weather and y'all the cold weather. And so we're about to get the cold weather back next week. I haven't looked at your forecast, but I'm betting the same day that we get the cold, you're going to get the heat back.
Yep.
But pretty cool to see like 5.5 inches in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. It's just like, what?
Yeah. Dude, it was crazy. I have a coworker that lives in New Orleans, and she was telling me about it, and I was just like, she sent me a picture of just the snow, which is like snow on Bourbon is one thing, and then she sent me like a picture a couple hours later of like the 6 inches or whatever, and I was just like, holy hell, that's like what to be in New Orleans for that had to be kind of a fun little time, like just walking Bourbon Street with a hand grenade in hand, if you will.
Is that like a type of drink?
Yeah, the hand grenades is something that they're famous for, and then like they have like personally, it's not my thing. Any of these drinks, like when I went, we had a good time, but I didn't buy a hand grenade. And then they have like those long plastic,
Vegas-y looking.
Yeah, exactly. And pick your poison of slushy with Everclear in it kind of thing. But the weather's been interesting. I was telling Sean before we pressed record, we just got our second snow of the year, which down in Atlanta, Georgia is like a thing. And the first time was fun. The second time was not fun. Like shut us down this entire last week. No school for Hatcher. Like we're all like working from home. Like all for like 3.5 inches of snow that turns into ice. Like nothing bad at all. Just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, everyone seems to know crazy winter conditions across all of the country, pretty much. Especially, it's crazy down south, but it's cold up, and really like negative temperatures, and New York and DC and crazy, winter down where places where you don't typically think of as a harsh winter. And then up here, it's been real warm. It's like, really warm. If you're looking in like southern, central Alaska, Anchorage, Wasilla, Palmer, Homer, Kenai Peninsula. I mean, it looks like it is May in the entire Kenai Peninsula. The Kenai River has got zero ice. Yeah, you could go rafting like right today. I bet you there's people like rafting in Alaska, which is just in January, which is unheard of. But up here, I'm in Denali area near Cantwell and Healy, and we actually did have it takes a lot for weather up here to shut down people's lives in one way or another. But yeah, we've had lots of warm weather, lots of heavy snow. It hasn't been melting much. Like it's above freezing right now, but like it also snowed, a foot in some places and maybe, 5 or 6 inches in other places. So there's like lots of heavy snow, and it snowed a lot on the mountains in a shorter period of time, and it was all super heavy, and it caused a local avalanche that went across the highway. First time we've had an avalanche go across the park's highway up here since 2003, I think.
Wow.
And it put 20 feet of snow, and there's a boulder that was in the rubble that they like finally uncovered the snow, and then they like took 2 bulldozers to this boulder, and that wasn't enough to it was such a big boulder that didn't budge it. And so people were, if you're living north of this milepost 219 on the Parks Highway, which is just north of Cantwell, like for example, I think there was people. I heard that Jeff, who's training for Cusco, was down on the Denali Highway. Jeff King was down on the Denali Highway and had just finished his training series. And then he's like, all right, finally, I'm sure that for me, the feeling when you're done with a training series on the Denali Highway, you load up the dogs and pull out and start driving home. It's just hell yeah, we did it. Dogs are safe. We're going home. I want to feed them. They're going to get to bed. I'm going to get to bed. And so he drives them. And there's a freaking avalanche, that went across the highway, and he was trapped in Cantwell for, pretty much another 24 hours before he could go home. So yeah, then up north of us, there's the road to Fairbanks was 2 inches of ice, glare ice, cars going off the road everywhere. Like the fire department, they slid off the road. So no one for the last day or two really, unless you really, 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 really need to, going south or going north, you're not traveling. And even once they cleared the avalanche, you get down below south of Cantwell, and it's been one of the snowiest places in Alaska, Broad Pass this winter, particularly, especially at low elevation. It's got a lot of snow, and it got warm, and now the snow's turning puddles, these deep puddles on the road, and super messy and slushy and washboard snow. So you're driving 30 miles an hour, just for 100 miles. It's just I've been chilling, not chilling. I'm just I got the snow machine out. I'm I'm not going to go to Fairbanks this weekend, and I'm not going south this weekend. So it's been pretty crazy, unseasonably warm. And then if you look at it from the mushing side of things, which that is, I believe, what our podcast is about. there's the Sioux Dog, the 300 that got canceled. It's been really warm in Willow. There's some crazy pictures coming out of there of just like water everywhere in the swamps. But I have heard like this that some of the trails have held up, and some of the rivers are still okay to travel on. But there's some pretty gnarly pictures as well of just water out there, lots of melting of 40 plus degrees and raining, and conditions have deteriorated. But I also like don't want to sound the alarm like crazy. Like you can still get out, and go explore in the snow. So it's not like winter just ended. Like it's just been it's been one of the warmest, like rainiest, windiest winters in recent memory. And I've only been here for 8 or 9 years, but people that have been here a long time say this is an exceptionally warm winter, and there's very little snow down in Wasilla and Anchorage. And then if you go to Willow, I think there's still snow left, but it's messy and slushy, and then you go farther north, it gets better and better, but it's still just messy on the roads. The trails are holding up here. The trails are fine. There's maybe some overflow there and overflow here. So yeah, just really warm. And then Cusco, they got postponed their event. They've never canceled the Cusco. I anticipate it'll still happen, but really tough conditions there in Bethel. I saw like a big, huge crack in the river ice that would indicate that it's unsafe to travel. And I think it's going to get cold here in a few days, and winter, I think, I'm not a meteorologist, but I do think it's not just going to like end when I think it's still January. We got 2 plus maybe 3 months potentially of winter left to remind us that we are in Alaska and it will get cold. And so, it is really been a special, really weird, windy, warm weather a lot of the winter.
Yeah. And, I think, like you said, to start this little segment, if you will, like the weather in general, no matter where you live, has been a little bit unique this year. And so,
yes.
Yeah, it's been fun navigating it here. It's not been that bad, but it sounds like from a race perspective, from a mushing perspective, I'm sure it's been a headache if you're trying to do all this training, and obviously depending on where you live too, probably you've probably had like more highs or lows in terms of that. But yeah, I would think that this season has not been easy. I'm sure like the handlers have had a lot of tough conditions to try to like train up some of the for any of the teams that have handlers, kind of thing,
and the mushers, right? I mean, it's like what a terrible, terrible winter to be having to deal with training a dog team. People are out and go ahead.
Let me ask you this. If this was your first year of being introduced into the dog scene, Sean, do you think you would have pursued what you ended up pursuing?
I mean, I think it's in some ways it's got to be kind of nice, like for a human perspective, like, it's not that cold. But yeah, everybody would prefer it be colder and less wet. Just really tough to like, all these people that will typically train from their home, they literally can't, they have to pack up the dogs and the sleds and drive to better conditions. So you see people training in Petersville Road, Denali Highway, Eureka is where Nick Petit's out there, and he's been keeping trails going out there. So yeah, there's probably some extra speed bumps in training for people that I don't envy. And
So you would probably still have pursued your dreams to run the Iditarod.
Who knows, man? I don't know. I mean, I wasn't even really pursuing that. I just
I know.
Like, was just working with dogs, and it happened.
Just happened. So before we get into talking about our guests this episode with Mike Parker, was there anything else that you wanted to bring up or talk about? I think we were talking about like murmurings of maybe a sign up or two for the Iditarod. I don't know if there's anything. If you want to talk a little bit about the
quest,
do you want to
share about the quest? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Firstly, I want to share my screen for those that are watching, and I and I blew it fully, but I was looking for what the heck. All right, I'm back. I'm stop sharing. I wanted to shout out the poster for the quest. Brennan, you got me on that.
All right. Yes,
you also want a tech guy. I'll see what I can do here. I had it pulled up, and then it went back to my Facebook homepage for some reason. Anyways, the quest poster is awesome, and saw like some great swag that they're selling with it. Sweaters and sweatshirts and stuff, and I don't know. I'm not like a huge artsy guy, but I just thought that was like a really cool.
You like this one?
Art that you guys should check out and buy it. Someone, because I think it's got a dog howling, a little campfire, the homie wearing a parka and all his winter gear with a harness that he's holding, and he's about to put on a dog, and then the tree in the winter night sky. You've got the Big Dipper back there, and it's just a really cool in every way piece of art that I just wanted to mention. Honorable mention. The quest is next weekend. They've got 3 different events: the fun run, the 80-mile run, and the 250 and the 450. I get confused with like which side is doing which distances, but I hope to get to Fairbanks. It's only a couple hour drive. We'll see what the roads do this week, but if the roads become like more travelable, which is a word, probably travelable, then I hope to get up there and check out the start. Really, it's one of the best like racing cultures in Mushing is the quest, and I think there's just a really, really awesome community of people that surround that event, and I'm looking forward to being able to check that out. Hopefully, so that's the Yukon Quest. Next weekend, we don't know when the Cusco is going to be still. We got February 3rd as the date for the Iditarod to choose where they're starting the race from. Is it been so messed up, the warm weather, that they end up going from Fairbanks? Is it holding up enough? I'm hearing. What's your speculation? I've heard, I've got good friends that with educated opinions that think Fairbanks, it's undoubtable it's going to be Fairbanks, but I've also heard that there's the river conditions, as of 3 days ago had held up, but it's been warm for the last 3 days. So I bet you that's probably not that as true as it was. Those river conditions east of and south of the Alaska range. But I believe Mark Norman and some other, and one other person I can't remember the name of, but they're going to be flying the trail and looking down at it to see to get out there and actually see what the conditions look like.
My question was going to be, is there such a thing as a delayed, like postponing the start of the Iditarod, or they're always starting it that first?
I mean, if they start in Fairbanks, the restart starts on Monday because you do the ceremonial still in Anchorage.
Oh, you
and
do?
Then to get people to give them the time to travel potentially a 6.5-7 hour drive from Anchorage to Fairbanks with the dogs would be like a lot to do that and like do your last minute prep and then start the next morning. So they get an extra day to start in Fairbanks. I'm not aware of any delayed starts. I think the trail looks great north of the Alaska Range. And we'll see if they end up. And I think it'd be cool to start in Fairbanks, especially for me. I've never seen any of those checkpoints besides Nenana, on the road system. But
right,
I think that would be kind of cool to see. But I think it's still on the menu that it could have a regular start. They could end up saying, "Oh, we're going to go like instead of the scheduled northern or southern route that it's supposed to be." They could end up switching to the northern route if it's like the trail conditions that go south of Ophir and southwest of Ophir, like into Iditarod and that super remote country could be maybe just too much to get out there and because there's no one traveling, so they have to break that trail, and it might be like just too unbreakable. So
gotcha.
We'll see. There's I think it's still on the table to have regular southern route, still on the table to be northern route through Ruby and Galena like it did last year, and then the way northern route is also probably in some people's eyes it's the probably most likely scenario, but we'll know February 3rd for sure.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, let's talk about our guest on this episode. We had Mike Parker, an OG listener from before Mushing, Alaska, from the other 350.
Yep. My side project.
Yeah. So
shout out to the people that joined on that. Matt Failure was my guest on that show. I really appreciate him doing that. And Mike Parker was listening, and he's clearly, you can just tell by the way that we were talking, and there's several moments where you're like, this guy, he listens to the show like, maybe more than any other guest we've ever had.
Yeah, that was fun. Especially like when we get to our quick hitters. He's like, he came prepared for what was it, like the Mount Rushmore question? I thoroughly enjoyed that.
That was a great answer.
Yeah, that wasn't a quick hitter. We went down the rabbit hole with that quick hitter, but it was fun. So no, but we had a good time with Mike, and just chatting with him. It went as it does with every guest, honestly. Like time just flew by, and I just really enjoyed listening to his story and kind of like hearing a little bit about how he got started, and and then now he's kind of like more full time, got back into it, and he's got the kids and making it work. It amazes me, honestly. Anytime I always say this, only having one child, like pulling that off and training for Iditarod, it's always such an amazing thing for me to think about. But any other thoughts you had, Sean?
I think that Mike is a really experienced rookie. He's been doing the mushing thing. He did some sprint mushing and started it several years ago. He's worked with a few different mushers in a few different places. And it's just like has this kind of diverse sled dog experience over the span of many years, like his entire adult life. He stepped away from it, which I think is kind of an important thing, like to step away from mushing and then come back to it. There's a perspective gained by that, I think. And I think it's just like he's one of the more experienced rookies this year. I think of like all-time most experienced rookies. You look at like the original Iditarod, the first Iditarod. That's everybody was a rookie. So those guys, they were experienced mushers. I think of Milla Porsild, who her rookie Iditarod. She was like, "This is great. You guys get 1,000 miles of marked trails with veterinarians and resupply points. Like I'm used to just exploring the Arctic." It's like, with just like by myself or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay. She's a certified, like, she's super, super qualified to run her rookie race. So I am really excited to see how Mike does out there and got his all white Alaskan sled dog team. I always like say it and I'm like, oh, it just sounds like we're being like sled dog racist, but like, it's just his dogs are all white and it does help with like the sunny days, whose dogs are cooler when it's 20 degrees and the sun is shining in March on the trail and you got, a bunch of black dogs. They're going to be hotter, so there's pros to it for sure. But it's just kind of funny. You're like, it's an all white team. And it's just like, well, no, we're not, anyways, I'll stop talking. What are you looking at, Brandon?
Last year we interviewed Josie Tier, and afterwards when we were doing our intro, I was just like, man, she just gave me really good vibes. And I feel like she could be in this running for Rookie of the Year. And I was so like, as you're talking about it, I'm going back to, okay, wait, let me look at the rookies again. And I'm just thinking, like, I'm not trying to put any pressure on him, but I think he would be someone that you might throw in a list, in a candidate list of potential rookies of the year. And so just like we had last year's Iditarod Rookie of the Year on. So what if in this episode we potentially had this year's Rookie of the Year on? That would definitely be cool. And I'm not saying that because I know he's going to listen. Like, we're not throwing pressure on you, but like, I liked the energy. I liked the vibes. I liked what I heard from Mike. So, I just put out some good vibes and energy towards him in that regard. That's all.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like I think Brenda Mackey is probably
that was
on that list.
Yep,
and then you got like some really badass dog teams that are in front of these rookies. So it'll be just, I think a big thing is just like what are people's goals, but if they get. I think every rookie starts out the same. Just kind of get your team like healthy and somewhat in the mix halfway down the trail, and then see if you can even dream of that. So yeah, that's it's an exciting list this year. So I'm excited to see this year's race and a lot of familiar names, and there's a few unfamiliar names. But yeah, anyways, Mike Parker, it was a really great talking to him. He's his Mount Rushmore of mushing. He looked like he was, one of the experienced talking heads on ESPN when he was just talking about.
It was so good. Time. So good. Oh man. And shout out to his website. We talk about that early on in the interview with him, but he's completely done his whole entire website. And so for me navigating the recording with him, like for Sean, it's a little easier. He's got the experience, he's a lot of times he at least knows them a little bit or sometimes more than that. But for me, it sometimes can be difficult. So just having his website up there and having all the information in front of me that I can take that and ask questions to get certain things out was just really helpful. So shout out to Mike on the website, on really everything that he's doing. I don't know how he does it, but that family Sounds like they got a good system going, and I think as we do everyone, we're rooting him on and hopefully he kicks some ass in the Iditarod this year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been through a lot to get here. He had that really tough incident last year. We talked about that a little bit and how he was able to the very next weekend go and complete the Knik 100, which was really one of his proudest moments. Wasn't it was right up there with qualifying for the Iditarod, was finishing the Knik 100 just after having gone through a really traumatic experience. So we're excited to see him out there on the trail, and he's almost to the start line, which is the hardest part. And he got to drop bags coming up. The fact that he even gave us an hour and is insane. We've reached out to other rookies and this year and last year, and they're just like, dude, no, I'm like 100% need to wait till after the race. I can't breathe. I'm just like totally. So it was cool that he gave us an hour, and thanks, Mike. We really had a good time.
Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. We're excited to have our next guest on. Welcome on, Mike Parker. How's it going, man?
Going pretty good. Happy to be on the podcast. Long-time listener. I was even a listener of the old version, the other 350.
Oh man,
yeah,
you're on the OG list. Yeah, you've seen what? If the other 350 was like an 11 out of 100 quality, now what do you think we're at? Like a 14 out of 100, and we're slowly just getting a little bit better.
A little bit progression. Yeah.
We've been slowly just trying to improve little bits by little bits, but it's definitely a backyard show. So thanks for listening, man.
Yep.
And we're stoked to have you on, and this was a big mushing weekend for mid-distance mushing. You got the Copper Basin 300 just ended early this morning, I think, and or maybe it was yesterday, but I'm just kind of curious. Were you watching the tracker?
Yeah, we were watching the tracker. We actually, right before the Copper Basin, we went out to Lake Louise to find some good snow and utilize some of those trails before the race came through. All the tracker looked like pretty warm temps, and probably the favorite won that thing.
Yeah, Jesse.
Yeah.
That was we weren't too surprised seeing Jesse and then Cody coming in the front there, and it didn't seem like it was like, and I don't know for sure, but it didn't seem like it was as warm as it like we were scared it was going to be upper 30s into potentially a 40-degree. Seemed like, because I was at Girdwood and in Anchorage, and it was like, and if you were in Chugiak, maybe like it was apocalyptic, like 4 inches of rain, colder down where Brendan is in Atlanta. It's like freezing temperature. So we're up here, they're like sitting, like, there's flooding. It's like full, like biblical downpour. And, essentially we had what you could categorize as a hurricane in South Central Alaska.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal here too. We had, like, I think up to 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts and a bunch of rain and 45-degree temps. It was crazy.
Yeah, I saw Mike, and what ultimately was the straw that broke the camel's back was me and Mike ran into each other when in his neighborhood in the Chugiak trails that he's been a huge part of. And they were pretty nice trails when I was there, like a couple, maybe like an inch of hard packed or a couple inches maybe. And I'm sure it's all completely.
Yeah. Not long after I saw you, because we had got rain like a couple weekends in a row. Not long after I saw you, the track has been closed. Yeah. So I don't have much trails here in Chugiak. So we've been trying to travel mostly up the Glen Highway just to find some place we can actually be on a sled and get some long runs in.
Yeah, have you been spending any time over there with, I see Nick T and the Barringtons maybe, and some other folks over at, what's the name of that lodge? Eureka?
Yeah, Eureka. We were there a couple weekends ago with Nick, and last weekend the Barringtons were at Lake Louise, staying at a different lodge from us, and so I ran into them a couple of times.
That's like the same,
just trying to find snow.
Same lodge as the checkpoint, Lake Louise Lodge checkpoint, right? You guys were there.
Yeah.
That lodge is just spectacular, I think. And yeah, that's a really massive lake, and yeah, it's been slim pickings for good conditions, man. I mean, you know, I'm sure you're hearing some whispers in the community about a Fairbanks start. You know, who knows? They kind of doesn't really change a whole lot on how your approach is going to be. You know, I guess you have less hills maybe, but, you know, a lot of river miles. But, you know, what do you think about like that as a rookie going into the race? You know, are you really even thinking about that route change?
It's I guess Iditarod came out yesterday and at least said when they were going to decide, which kind of took some of the uncertainty away. At least like I'll know when I will know now. But I mean, being a rookie, it's pretty much all new trail to me anyway, and we'll just do it. Wherever they have us go, we're ready to go.
Right. Yeah, I remember I was looking at, I was over hanging out with my friends, Chad Stoddard. You probably know him, and his girlfriend, maybe. And he's handed me you know, they're at Martin Beeger's place. There's all kinds of fun stuff there. And he handed me like some old like calendar. And I saw the route. It must have been in the early 2000s, maybe, where they went Fairbanks start. And then they went all the way to, what's the checkpoint before No, it must have been, got to Caltag, dropped down to Anvik, Grueling, and then went back up to Caltag.
Yeah.
Went to Unalakleet. And I was like, dude, that's literally like 700 or 800 miles on the Yukon River.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you got
21. Was that 21? The gold?
No.
The gold one?
No, that one was like 4, maybe. They did that route, something like that.
Wow. Okay.
And then the other 2 times that it started in Fairbanks, they went different. The benefit that I have is Jim Lanier, whose dogs I run. He has done the Fairbanks start a couple of times. So he's got some insights into that. Good.
Yeah, that was my first Iditarod experience as a fan, and handling for Jeff King was that Fairbanks start, and going to the Indiana checkpoint was neat because you can just drive to it, and there was 70 plus teams, and it was 30 below, and it was an exciting time for me. So
hey, real quick, I have a question about this, because I was chatting about this today with someone else, and I was curious, like, do those the new checkpoints that are introduced, if a Fairbanks route is going to happen, are those like more remote than some of the other checkpoints that you would normally see in the even and odd years? Is there much of a difference in terms of I mean, you talked about maybe not as many hills, but I was more so thinking from like a village standpoint, you know, like smaller towns, or what?
I think the way they've done it in the past, it actually ends up going to more villages, because I think at a Fairbanks, you end up the checkpoints being villages, whereas with the normal route, you know, Yennis, Gwenda, Finger Lake, Rainy Pass are just kind of lodges, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think so some historic villages. I think last time too, they went through Uslia, yeah, which is like where George Atlas from. So it's like Mushing history there.
Nice.
Yeah, that the highway for Alaska, Brendan, you know, the Yukon River, summer and winter, just one of the easiest ways to travel for remote Alaska. You know, you can just, if you get a good boat, you can travel several hundred miles on the Yukon River, cheaply relative to flying. It's just pretty cheap and not as quick as flying, but still pretty quick. So Mike, kind of just broke into it a little bit, but I'm curious, how, like, where are you from? I know Brendan's been reading up on you. I'm kind of, at least just a basis of your, getting into dogs and what your kind of upbringing might have been like.
Well, so mushers are like superheroes. Everybody has their like origin story. I was bitten by a radioactive husky. No, I'm kidding. So I was actually born in Alaska, and I lived in Palmer. And I remember when I was in kindergarten, Martin Boozer and Susan Butcher came to my school to do like a sled dog presentation. And that was when I first really started learning about Iditarod and just like thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I moved out of Alaska shortly after that. Mostly grew up in Spokane, Washington. And so my dream was always to come back to Alaska and to run the Iditarod. So after college, I ended up moving to Bethel, of all places, and met Myron Anksman, who's longtime musher out there, founder of the Kuskokwim 300, and started running dogs with him. Got in and out of dogs a couple of times since then, and until I met Jim Lanier here in Chugiak, and been running with him for the past few years.
Dude, so I gotta ask real quick. So first of all, I gotta give your website a shout out. Sleddogparker.com, made by you, very thorough, awesome. Check out for like more details and stuff that we maybe skim over. But the first thing I was curious about is like shortly after you being in Bethel, I guess, like how did that conversation with Myron go where you like, boom, you're running races literally like a couple of months after like firstly meeting him. So I'm just like kind of curious about that, like where was your intention was to get into dogs, or that just kind of like fell into place?
Well, I was trying to figure out a way to come back to Alaska after college. And that was kind of step one. And then I was going to try to figure out dogs. And how I ended up in Bethel was I joined this volunteer organization. You can kind of think of it almost like the Catholic Peace Corps. And that volunteer organization had been in Bethel for like 30 years. And so when I got there, lived with a bunch of other volunteers, and Myron just called the house one day and said, "Hey, if anybody is interested in learning about or running sled dogs, like give me a call." And I was like, from there, I was at Myron's house pretty much every day that I lived in Bethel. And so just a couple months in, I'd been on a sled a few times, and he was like, "Ready to race?" And I was like, "Let's do it."
Bethel is a special place, man. I really like it there, going and being to the Cusco just helping out with Jeff and his dogs a couple times. Just really, really enjoyed that week. Is such a big week for that community. It seems to me, and and you having spent a good chunk of time there and mushed there more than just those events. Is it like what do you think about conditions out there and like people's attitude towards like what's a mushable trail conditions, what isn't? Like right now, like, dude, my favorite friend on Facebook right now, he barely knows I exist, Mike Williams Jr., just like going out like 16 dog team, just complete and total sheet of ice, freshly Zamboni looks like. And he's just out there just like with a 16 dog team, like nice run today. And like for everyone else I know in mushing, they're just like, yeah, like we can't hit the trails today. Like this is just way too slick. And Mike's just like, yeah, hook 16 dogs up. Let's go. What do you think about like trail conditions and running dogs there relative to, where you are and what you're doing now?
It's so drastically different. And it was almost kind of shocking because that's when I first started mushing. to like now come and like run through trees and forests and actual real trails. But so there's kind of like two, at least out of Bethel, there was kind of like two places to go to run dogs. You either just go out on the tundra, which we would even do before there was snow. You could just run a sled just on the bare tundra because it's like spongy and soft. And so that was pretty interesting. Or it's go on the river. And yeah, you kind of just go. Like one example was 1 year with Myron, I got to do the Bogus Creek 150, which at that time they ran it literally on the same weekend as the Kuskokwim 300. And it was not a good winter for snow. And they delayed the race a couple of times, waiting to see if there was snow. And they just said, okay, we're having it this weekend, snow or not. And the majority of the 150 is just all on the river. And it was literally glare ice for like 70 miles out of Bethel. And it was just like, let's go. Let's do it. It was crazy. And I think on that race too, it was like minus 60 wind chills like the entire time. And yeah, we just went for it.
There's Sean, there's a video on the website of that race of Mike. And, it's just like dogs are going straight and like sleds, like just, like 45-degree angle the whole time. But yeah, that's negative 65. Oh man, I mean, I guess it was not as long of a race, but still that doesn't sound like fun. Like, was there, second place rookie of the year for that race? Like, was there any thought of, these conditions are not worth the trouble, or you just like, you powered through it kind of thing?
I was maybe like too green and like too hungry to do a race that like, I didn't care.
Right.
One thing I'll never forget about that race, I didn't know this was possible, but there was 4 mushers on the race that had to scratch with frostbitten eyeballs.
Oh,
which was just brutal.
Eyeballs.
Yeah, I didn't know that was possible. But yeah, I was all for it. I was ready to go, and I had Myron's B team in that race, and Myron himself was in it, and I gave him a lot of crap, a hard time because he ended up scratching and I got second place.
Yes. And that's my understanding is that's like basically a locals only event, right? In that maybe I'm mistaken, but that also like they just like Bethel's races, they got like their funding is amazing, and so like the Bogus Creek second place finish, you're coming home with a decent check nowadays. Back then, I'm sure it's going to Myron anywho, but
yeah, it was a pretty good size paycheck, and I just signed it all over to Myron.
Yeah,
but yeah, they do a whole bunch of local races. They're doing, I think the purses are even higher now than they were. I was out there like 15 years ago. But the Kuskokwim 300 organization puts on all those races, and they just do an amazing job organizationally and funding wise, and it's quite a mushing hotbed out there.
That's awesome.
But I don't think that they limit the Bogus Creek to local mushers, but I don't think anybody but locals kind of does it, especially since they moved it a few years ago to wholly separate from the K300. It used to be like the 150 started and then the K300 started right behind it.
Right.
But yeah.
So that Bogus Creek race was 2010. Did the negative 65 conditions like have anything to do with taking some time off after that, or?
No, really, it just got to the point where like Bethel's really is a special place, like Sean said. But after a few years out there, I was just like, I got to get back on the road system.
Yeah.
And wanted to kind of start my own thing. And I ended up moving to Fairbanks, had my own dogs for a little while, and then kind of started to dabble in sprint mushing. though I would kind of do what they call limited class sprint mushing. So basically, if you don't know, Brendan, in sprint mushing, there's open class, which literally means hook up as many dogs as you want. And that's like the major races, like the Ferrandi and the Open North American. Limited class is when it's a specific number. So like 4-dog class, 6-dog class, 8-dog class. And so I was doing that and just kind of, I ended up like not doing the races because my girlfriend at the time, she was a lot lighter than me. I'm like, oh, we'll do better. But you on the 6-dog team will be way faster. And it was just like a lot of work for very short runs. And so then I took some time off, decided like I needed to kind of work on my career and try to start a family and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Not to cut you off. That's where I was going to go is, on the Iditarod website, you mentioned your 4 children and, I've got one, he just turned 3. And anytime we have a guest on where, they are doing the mushing and, the dogs are like kids in its own sense. And then you've got 4 human, children to take care of as well. It just, talk to me a little bit about like that home life balance,
Well, my older 2, my stepkids are older. Merrick is like 22 now. He's out of the house. Zoe's 18. She lives at home. But I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. I do have a full-time job also. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to do all that and all the training and stuff that I got to do for Iditarod. Luckily, my wife is super supportive, and my job is at least mostly remote, so I can work from home or sometimes work from the kennel.
Nice. What is their job?
I'm an IT project manager.
Nice. Yeah, good. It seems like no one's making money running the Iditarod. That's for sure. So, or running any of these races. It sounds like such a well-rounded, like long mushing journey that you've been on of just like getting that Bethel experience, getting the sprint experience, taking time away, getting all that time to think about, do you really want this? Do you not? And then linking up with Jim and his group of dogs that I saw them that day and I was like, okay, I can tell how you might eventually be able to pick which dog's which, but they're all white.
Yeah.
And it's always like, I'm always like, man, but like, it's really, I can see the difference, but, so you've been working with Jim for a few years and, what do you think about his dogs, compared to, some of the other distance dogs you may have worked with?
Well, yeah, they all are all white. That's the major difference. It did take me a while when I first started to be able to like tell them apart. But now, especially since there's a lot of young dogs that I've known their whole lives, or I can kind of pick them apart. I do think that the team has a lot of speed. And I don't know, I think partially that's just kind of the dog and the breed of the dog. Part of it probably has something to do with we're basically connected to the Chugiak trails, which are sprint trails. So we always have like really nice groomed fast trails to run on, at least when it's not raining. But yeah, and everybody kind of says that these dogs have a lot of personality and a lot of intelligence, and I think that's somewhat true as compared to some of the other ones I've run over the years.
Yeah. And you, like Jim, I remember he made headlines being 80 something running the Iditarod on his last go round, and people, just a good inspiration to even get to the start line at that age. And, I've seen him. I saw him out at the Copper Basin with you last year. And, like talk a little bit about him, talk about Jim a little bit and just like what your experience with him has been, what you think of him.
Jim is an incredible mentor. I mean, he did his first Iditarod, I think, in '79. The last time he was in it, I think, was like 2018-ish or somewhere around that time. He also he did the 1,000-mile Yukon Quest as a 79-year-old rookie. So he's seen it all. He has so much experience, and you can ask Jim a question and get an answer that is, well, this is how we did it in the 70s, and then in the 80s we started doing it like this, and in the 90s we started. It's just an unbelievable amount of information. And I think he's like 84 years old now, and still kicking around, still helping feed and care for the dogs, and it's just been. I don't know if you could ask for more knowledge from a mentor than I get from Jim Lanier.
Yeah, it's a lot of dog experience. 79.
His last,
wow.
He ran it in 2020 last.
I see. I remember him being. I remember it because I read that. Yeah,
insane. His last finish was 2013, but still, he ran it 2014, 15, 16, 18, and 20. Good God.
Yeah, he's got like 16 finishes or something like that.
So how big is your pool of dogs you're running? And have you how many do you have to pick from?
So started off the year training 24 dogs. Actually 18 of those are 2-year-olds. So wow. pretty young team mostly, and I've been doing pretty much all the training myself. So for most of the year, just 2 12-dog teams and going every other day with each team.
So every day for you?
Yeah, every day. Yeah.
Wow. And so are you basically have you taken maybe, there's one dog who, I just don't think this dog is that good of an eater. And hasn't been for 3 months. I'm going to eliminate him from being a contention of being on my team. So I don't, I can make one team smaller. Or are you still kind of like, they're pretty healthy. They're performing pretty well. The margin between these 24 dogs is fine, and I don't know, I haven't eliminated, and brought it down to 18 or brought it down to 20. Like, where are you at right now? And January 14th.
Well, Sean's birthday today, by the way. Shout out.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Well, so I kind of went with 24 because that was the amount that I thought that I could handle. Jim has more dogs than that. Early on, there was a couple I thought didn't really have much of a chance to make it. And so I tried to insert some of the other dogs in there and get them back miled up. So most of the year I've been able to stay around 24. These trail conditions have been brutal. So we've had to give some dogs some time off here and there to mess with it. I mean, I have a pretty good idea of who the race team would be. But you never know what can happen. So I'm just trying to keep as many trained up as I possibly can.
Yeah. And again, shout out to the website. All the dogs are listed. You can see their pictures and their little bios. And it looks like most of them are sponsored. It looks like there's like 4 or 5, Superman and Crypto and Marvel, Spidey, Timon. I love the names that could use the sponsorship. So if for anyone listening want to, check out the website again, sleddogparker.com. Gotta throw some love there. But yeah, no, it's funny when I went to visit Sean, he's worked with Jeff, he's worked at Dallas, tons of dogs around there. And I'm just like, it's always, impressive to like be able to figure out all the different dogs and look at them. And like, you were saying like, it didn't take you too long to figure it out, but like, here I am looking at the website and all these pictures and I'm like, yeah, there's definitely like differences, but like, there's a lot of similarities. So it's like, and it's like in the yard and then there's like on the gang line, which is like 2 different like
too distinct to like learn. You're like, oh, I for sure know that dog's Billy and that dog's Bob. But then you like hook them up on the gang line and you just see their butt and their ears. You're like, oh, okay,
I actually always found it easier to tell who they were on the gang line because I get more used to recognizing the way they move. Some of them that are like very similar in size in the face, it's actually in the yard that it's a little bit more like, wait, is that Superman or Crypto? Oh.
And then one runs a little diagonally and one runs perfectly straight. And you're like, okay, yeah, you spend way more time staring at them running than you do staring them at their house. You know, you're there putting booties on and doing dog care and feeding. But ultimately, when you go on a 50-mile run and you have 6 hours of just staring at the dogs, you know, and you're just thinking, oh, you know, what can I learn? What kind of information can I get right now? Or maybe I should go get some goldfish out of the bag, you know, whatever it is. But yeah, you're trying to take in as much as you can, and it's what changed and what's the same. And so have you done some, so you did some trips out there near the Glen Allen Copper Basin trails, and have done some series. I'm thinking, you know, like what did your most recent series look like?
Last weekend we went out to Lake Louise and just did a series basically on the lakes there, pretty much. I think once or twice we came back to the truck and sort of camped on the truck. A couple of times we camped on the lake, but yeah, just trying to, especially with how bad the conditions are in Chugiak and the fact that I have to work, trying to maximize the weekends by kind of getting like more series in and that kind of thing.
So like you work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 ish, and then you're like get off and you're taking the dogs on. Like, what's like the minimum run you're doing on a weekday? You just got to get them out, you know?
These days I try to go at least 25. Luckily before all the weather got bad, we got some really good mileage in, but I was like getting off of work at 5, coming over and doing a 50-mile run after work, and
so you're
going to bed and getting up and doing it all again the next day.
So that's like you're getting off at 5. You're like, you got to like load up the dogs, right? Or you have to load the dogs up into the dog truck with all. I'm sure you have all the gear kind of waiting in the truck. You know, the harnesses and sleds and food or booties or whatever, and then get there, like take them out of the truck, hook them up to the sled, get the sled set up, and all that. And so you're like, I mean, a 50-mile run 6 hours, but there's an hour on the front end at least.
And then get back
on the back end,
get back and feed and. So there was a good stretch there. I was getting home like 1:30, 2 a.m. like every day.
Damn. Yeah. And then you get done. So then like on a series weekend, you get done Friday 5, you load up, you go to Lake Louise. It's a 4-hour-ish drive. And then you're just running dogs, 4 to 6 hour runs, 4 to 6 hour rests until it's Sunday and it's time to go home, at a reasonable hour, which is 1:30.
Yeah, just trying to maximize all the time that I have to run dogs.
What's the biggest strength of your dog team in sense of like, are they great eaters? They're good at holding weight. They're good at running in warm weather. They're good in crappy conditions. Like, what do you think is a couple of like the things you've noticed about your team that maybe are above average?
Well, I think maybe warm weather might be part of it. Since we train in Chugiak, it's generally warmer than like Fairbanks or Talkeetna or where other teams are. And the other thing is, I think we have pretty good top end speed. I think is another piece of it.
What do you mean by that?
Just that I mean like, well, if we were, if we're on a section of trail that's like flat and fast, I think that we probably have more speed than a lot of other teams do. I don't know if that maybe means that we might need to take more rest than other teams because we're going a little bit faster and maybe take a little bit longer to recover. But yeah, I think just like training on the sprint trails gives my dogs the kind of ability to like turn it on and really hit a good top end speed. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or maybe also they, if them at 10 miles an hour might be burning less energy than some other teams at the same speed.
That'd be the hope, I guess.
Yeah. It's always tricky. And then you get to a race and the dogs are extra excited and extra, and the thing is everything changes a little bit, but nice. So you've run the Copper Basin, the Bogus Creek. What's like a memorable like one of your more memorable qualifier moments / events?
Well, I think a couple stand out. So the other qualifiers I did the Willow 300 was my first one, and then we did the Goose Bay 150, or what do you call it? The Goose Tug Bar 150.
That's how I know you're a listener. I'm always making that joke. Yeah. It's the Tug Bar Goose Bay 150, but like me and my buddy Cody would always just be like, it's the Goose Buck Tug Bar Goose Bay 150. Yeah.
What was memorable about that one is that race, it was kind of just it was really a slog out to the checkpoint, to the halfway point, really slow. And I had thought that maybe at that race I had like a top 5 dog team, and I think we came into the checkpoint like 8th or something like that. But the temperature dropped while we were there, and the trail finally set up. And just the run back was one of the more magical runs I've had, and just like never just seen a dog team like so in unison and pushing so hard. And we just flew by a bunch of teams and did really good, and ended up finishing 3rd in that race with all the dogs healthy. So that was really memorable. The Copper Basin though last year was super memorable, mainly because of kind of what it meant for me. One, it got me all the way qualified for Iditarod, and then 2, what we had been through previously that winter. So most people that follow mushing probably know that we got hit by a snow machine on the Denali Highway last winter. Lost some dogs, and we didn't have a lot of adults in the team last year. Like I said, we have 18 2-year-olds this year. Well, they were all yearlings last year. But we didn't want to give up. We didn't want to kind of close the door on the season. So going to the Copper Basin, I ended up taking like 5 15-month-olds on that race. And it was just, I was so proud of those dogs, and we took a whole bunch of extra rest just to try to make sure that we could make it to the finish line, and weren't worried about racing. And it was just like a really special, like healing moment for us, and made me realize like, no, I can still do this. Like despite all the horrible tragedy that happened, like I can still do this. I can keep going. So I think that race in particular will always just be like really special to me that we were able to do that.
Yeah. Congratulations on making it, to that finish line after going through something like that. And I've had some sled dog heartbreak, that isn't publicly just spread through like wildfire. Like I can't imagine going through something like that. And it also is just like everybody knows about it. Everybody has an opinion. People are probably, asking you. I'm sure it was just already by itself, without the public part of it, overwhelming and tough to process and get through. And maybe you still haven't fully processed something like that. But I'm assuming after an event like that, I've been through such difficult moments. I've got a lot of friends that have. And it's just the first thought is like, what are we even doing? What are we doing here? So I don't know if that was yours, but it's just, you're like, all right, like we're running dogs and now this happens. It's like, why are we even doing this? And it's like easy to get into that place. And so, yeah, to continue on training your team. And that's what that's ultimately what you see in the dogs that are there. You're like, these guys don't want to sit at their doghouse for the next 3 months of winter. They're ready to go. And so it's amazing that you got that turned around. And made it, I think a lot of people were really excited to see you there at the Copper Basin.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, like just the mental aspect of everything that happened was the hardest part. But yeah, like the publicity was just like over. I mean, I was in New York newspapers for that incident, and it was really hard. I decided pretty quickly that I wasn't ready to give up after that, and like wanted to keep going, partially to honor the dogs that we lost, partially just because I didn't want somebody to take my dream away from me like that. And it was actually the following weekend we did the Connect 100, and that first day, man, that was like the hardest run I have ever been on, because it was really the first time like back on a sled. Like I know they say Iditarod is super tough mentally, but there's no way it could have been tougher than what I was going through that first run of the Connect 100. But we also kind of learned a lot there, because we had a tough run and the dogs kind of had a tough run, and I was down and very emotional. And some of my buddies and some of my mentors were like, "Hey, man, like you gotta fake it for the dog's sake, because they feed off of your energy." And so the 50 miles on the second day, I was just like, "All right, I'm not going to be sad anymore. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to make these dogs be happy." And it was just like a way better run. We were way faster. We were like actually catching teams and passing them. So it was like, yeah, there was a lot of truth in that the dogs really pick up on your energy and in that way.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like a little bit of hubbub sometimes when you're like, oh, they pick up on my energy. Like, cool. Like, I feel like every time I get on the damn sled, they're going to pull me into the 7th level of hell. Like, can I just be a little sad for a run? Is that all right? Because every time that doesn't seem like they give a toot if I'm back here or not. But yeah, no, when you're getting into that difficult conditions or longer distances, yeah, that stuff is contagious, man. But that's an amazing story. And I remember you have done stuff there at the Chugiak trails, which is a cool, like, kind of thing to talk about. I think, I got this mush out there for the first time last week, and what a cool spot. You guys got like a mushing association that's in the municipality of Anchorage. It's mushing only trails, which are, and it feels really remote. And in some ways, by Georgia standards is remote, but by Alaska standards, it's 7 minutes to go to Fred Meyer's from there, Yeah. So, and mushing only trails in the municipality of Anchorage it's like so huge. I mean, imagine cross-country skiers hitting dogs with their skis or loose dogs. People are walking, so you got this mushing only area, 30 miles, and, depending on winter conditions, groomed, most of the winter. And so what a cool spot. I think I remember seeing you doing, an event, commemorating some of your lost teammates. And you've been out there training. I saw you and you're going out there. There's 15 miles, Brendan, of trail, and he's ripping out a 50-mile run with 15 miles to work with, just writing his name in cursive. And I mean, and talk about, like, I think that kind of run, mental toughness for the dogs to pass the turn to go home over and over and over, so much so that they see the turn to go home and they're like, we're not going home. And they're just like, that mentality of like, we're ready to just keep. And on the Yukon River, if you're about to do 500 miles straight on the Yukon River, that kind of experience mentally for the dogs, I think it's going to be huge. But yeah, the Chugiak trail system, let's talk about what that means to you, having spent the last few years around there.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. I can get like about a 15 to 17 mile loop without backtracking, but it is really like a series of interconnected loops. So when I'm doing long runs, I at least try to like take this turn differently, but eventually you're just going the same way. And we've actually run series out there. We have like a little spot where we can pull off and camp. And I've done like, 120, 160 mile series just around those trails. But it's great, especially because mostly sprint mushers use it. And so those guys are just like religious about grooming it. So it's always in pretty good shape. I wanted to try to introduce like somewhat of a distance mushing event in Chubiak. And then that was kind of in the works. And then after everything that happened, we decided to actually run it in honor of the dogs that we lost. So we call it the Solo Sweepstakes. And last year we were able to get to use a 17-mile trail. So we would have the teams, we went small teams, 6 dogs only. And you did the 17-mile loop twice and then had to rest for 4 hours and do the 17-mile loop 2 more times. So it was like a 68-mile 6-dog race. We're hoping to be able to have it again this year. We need a little bit more snow between now and then to pull it off. But I thought it was a really cool thing. And we maxed it out at like 20 teams, which was as many as we could fit in the parking lot. And a really cool event that I hope we can keep going.
6-dog event, dude. That's awesome. I love a 6-dog team, dude. It's just like so manageable. So you can, if you get in a situation, it's a lot easier to get out of. And it's also like there's, you send, if you have one dog not working that hard, you very much notice it,
Yeah.
They're 1 out of 6,
Well, I wanted to keep the number of dogs down because especially late in the season, that short of a distance race, like if you have 10 or 12, it's just a drag race. With 6, it requires you to actually like manage the team to get them through that. And then the other part of it was I was kind of hoping that some of the people that would do this race are those that want to do distance style, but don't have enough dogs in their kennel, to run the 200-300 mile races, and just give those people an opportunity to like compete somewhere.
Right.
Nice.
So I wanted to talk about this season that we're in. I see that you're signed up for the Quest 200, I believe. Is that's the only race you're doing before hitting the Iditarod?
Well, actually, so we're also signed up for the Sioux Dog 300.
Oh, okay.
The plan all along was to just do the Sioux Dog because of trail conditions have not been great. I signed up at the last minute for the Quest 200 as a backup option.
Okay.
So I'm only going to do one of them, and they're on back-to-back weekends. The Sioux Dog is supposed to make an announcement this coming Saturday on if the race will be held or not. And if not, then I'm going to go to Fairbanks. The Sioux Dog happens, I'm just sacrificing my entry fee and probably not going to Fairbanks.
Good. Okay. And in terms of just like, you're getting ready for the Iditarod, you're getting ready for one of those 2 races, like you're doing a lot of this solo, right? You don't have you have your family, but it sounds like, are you getting mushing help? Or your wife takes care of the kids and like that frees you up to take care of the dogs?
Wife takes care of the kids. Jim and his wife Anna do a lot of the dog care, and we have some other people that help out at the yard with like chores and stuff. But any actual running and training is on me.
Got you. Okay. So, and like, I guess that team of people also helps like for the drop bags and stuff like that for the Iditarod. Is that right? Or is that a solo thing for you?
Mostly me. Help again from Jim, but yeah, it's mostly me.
Where are you at on that?
Yeah, that's the next question. Where are you at, man?
not as far along as I want to be. Just put it that way. We'll get there.
What's the deadline?
They're due on the 12th or 13th of February.
February. Okay.
So we got time.
You got to.
Yeah, you can grind them out in like a few days with a couple people, and you'll be fine. You know what you're doing. You've done this for races.
Yeah, I have the plan at least in place and some of the stuff ready to go. But we got a big push here soon.
Yeah. It's nice to procrastinate. There's something to be said for it. There's benefits to doing that.
Some of our best work is
that's it. I
work.
Pressure. Well, you didn't want to get too far along because then they're going to probably change the route when they announced it on February 3rd. You just have to repack anyway. So my procrastination may have been strategic.
Yes. Highly so.
Here we go. Okay. So the third is the announcement for the route. And then okay. All right. That gives you 10 days.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, dude. Firstly, I gotta say the Copper Basin mustache. I have a picture of it somewhere, and I gotta send it to you. But it was prime time. I would like to just put a vote in for that for your Iditarod look. Although beard's looking fierce, I compliment beards. I compliment Nordman's.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I like the trim look. All right, I'm rocking the trim look myself right now as well. But like, dude, some of those long ones, I'm a fan of that one. When did you cut off some of those long ones I see on your website?
Well, so actually, the last year when we did when we were going to do the Kinnick 100, after what happened, I was like, man, I don't want anyone to talk to me. So then I had an idea the night before. I'm like, I'll get rid of the beard. Nobody knows what I look like without the beard, and nobody will talk to me. And so that's when I started rocking the mustache, and it kind of worked until like I had to draw my bib number. And then I was like, oh yeah, now the racing stash is where it's at. But the wife wasn't a big fan of that, so we're kind of going back to the beard, and I'll see how long I can grow it out before I decide on the facial hair.
Oh, really close. Oh, baby. There it is. Oh my gosh.
Dude, fierce. We'll post that. Well, that's going to be a photo for your, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Oh, we're making that the cover for this episode. No, we have a friend, a mutual friend that Sean went to school with. His name's Denver, and he's a firefighter, and he rocks that type of stash full time. And like, I think he's probably been doing it for maybe close to, near a decade. And that stash, like when he first started, it was just kind of like more like porn starry, like thin, right? And it just got like, it's gotten a lot thicker and longer. And yeah, no, your stash there is fine, man. You got, I know you're going to have something for the Iditarod. You got to do something for the fans.
Maybe I might just wait till like the morning of the restart to go back to the stash, so then my wife can't say anything at that point.
Oh, right.
Well, we'll see. That's an option for sure.
Hey, so I wanted to ask you a question about you. My understanding, and maybe I'm having it a little bit mixed up, but working over there with Jim Lanier, you have gotten a chance to work with Hugh Neff, and we've kind of danced around Hugh Neff on the podcast, and like I feel like he's this enigma of like, from a just like a general public standpoint, there's all these, what you hear about like him having to get out of races and stuff, but like you've had a chance to work with him. I'm just curious, like, can you talk to us a little bit about Hugh? We don't really know him like that, but I would love to hear it from someone who's like actually spent time with him,
Yeah, Hugh was here working at the kennel. We trained together the first year that I was with Jim, and there's a lot of stories. A lot of people have opinions about Hugh, but I'll tell you one thing is that guy knows dogs. He has a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he did the Iditarod a huge amount of times, the Quest a huge amount of times, won it a couple of times. And me and him are close. He's always been a good buddy of mine since we met. But yeah, wealth of dog mushing knowledge from that.
And so, like, is it just kind of he gets like, is he walking the fine line? Is he get like a bad rep? What is it? Because I'm intrigued as a guy sitting in Georgia. Like all I see is like the bad side of it, and and so the good side of it, which it sounds like you've experienced. Like, I don't know. Just is there anything else to say there, or just leave it kind of there?
I don't know if I have much else to say except shout out Hugh Nass for sure.
Okay,
he's my guy.
Okay, for sure. Respect.
So usually when we get to the end of the show, Brendan and I maybe just fire off a couple of quick questions and lighter subjects.
Yeah.
And so let's do that, Brendan. Do you want to start off?
Yeah. I'm curious about your when you're on the sled, when you're on the runners, are you listening to music? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you listening to books? Are you raw dogging it?
Sure. Raw dog style. I have never put headphones in on a sled. Everybody tells me like you need to do that on Iditarod to help you stay awake, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like I just like the quiet, peacefulness, dude.
I love that answer. It makes we have a friend that lives in New York, Devin, and he hit me with this. He is like, dude. He is like, I'm a psycho killer. When I go to the gym, like everyone's sitting there and they've all got their earphones in. And he's just like, I'm just sitting there raw dogging it. And like, it's like psycho killer style.
Psycho killer mode. Yeah, I was psycho killer mode for Iditarod, but during training on the same trails, the same laps, a lot of time I would listen to something, but yeah, it's good. I like psycho killer mode because I feel like I'm going to miss something super important or, whatever. But yeah. So what's your, what is your favorite go-to snack, and trick for also part B, trick to stay awake when you're sleepy?
Go-to snack would be Reese's peanut butter cup thins, because those don't freeze too bad. And I'm a sucker for peanut butter.
You and me both, Mike. You and me both. I had some earlier today. Yes. That's also pro level on the not too thick, because
the thins are the way to go.
That's next level right there. I'm proud of that.
I do like 5-hour energies to stay awake, but I learned on my basically first race that you can drink too many of those close together and it's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
So the other thing I do is I got these like coffee flavored caffeine candies that I suck on to help stay awake. Those work pretty good.
Yeah, gotcha. Nice. Okay. Going back to my question, just in general, like, what do you listen to music wise? What are some of your favorite artists?
Mostly country music, and generally stuff from like the early 2000s. Like I kind of never progressed my musical taste beyond the early 2000s.
Okay. Give me a couple of artists from country and from the early 2000s that would make, some playlists.
So
Toby
like
Keith.
Yeah, like Toby Keith, some
R.I.P.
Dierks Bentley. If I venture outside of the country genre, then it's I still listen to like 50 Cent and like Eminem and Dr. Dre and like that kind of era.
Nice. Okay.
Nice. Have you gotten into any of the newer like kind of outlaw country artists like Sturgill Simpson and Coulter Wall?
I do listen to some of that stuff. Of the new stuff, like that's kind of the more genre that I can take. The kind of popular stuff is way too poppy, I think, for me.
Yeah. Brendan?
I usually ask this one. That is, if you were to give me like your top 3 of like Mount Rushmore.
Okay, so I did say I am a listener to this podcast, and I'm looking for this question. And I have
Nice.
what I believe is the correct answer, because it's kind of like the sports talk radio version of the answer,
Right.
Which would be ring culture. In this case, that means Iditarod championships.
Yep.
So
Got it.
Not to say that like other races aren't super cool and super important, but there's only one race that if you win, you get interviewed on the Today Show, right?
Right.
So the top 5 is Dallas Seavey, Rick Swenson, and then you got to pick from the 4-time winners, right? So that the 4 times winners would be Doug Swingley, Susan Butcher, Martin Boozer, Jeff King, Lance Mackey. I think Mitch Seavey warrants a mention as a 3-time winner and won the All-Alaska Sweepstakes and like grew the greatest musher of all time in a lab, but he's only got 3, so he's not going to make it. So the 4-time winners, I think
This is deep, dude. I love this.
Wait, you're talking? He said grew the greatest musher of all time in a lab. That's Dallas. Okay, all right.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
I mean, I think like Mitch would probably have like 5 or 6 if he hadn't done that,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
so he warrants mention, and he is in the race this year, so maybe he can break into the top 5. And I think you have to put all controversies aside for this list, the publicly owned ones and the ones whispered about in the mushing community. But so I think Lance Mackey, because he's got 4 in a row, is in the top 5. I think that you have to put Jeff King in there for kind of all his innovations and kind of how long he was doing it. And then it gets really tough. But I think probably Susan Butcher makes the list as number 5 just because of the impact she had in growing the profile of the sport. Like when she wasn't the first woman to win it, but when she just started winning it, that's when Iditarod like became world famous, and there was the whole Susan versus Rick Swenson like battle of the sexes thing going on. So I put her in the top 5. So Dallas, Rick, Lance, Jeff, and Susan are the top 5 mushers of all time.
Jeff. The Lance and Jeff one is an interesting debate because Lance's 4 in a row is just like a pretty insane streak that may never happen again. But then you got Jeff, who's like sustained excellence from like the late 80s until the mid 2000 teens. And, basically top 10 Iditarod almost every year in there. And
yeah, so and then Martin starts to leave off.
Debatable.
Martin started to leave off because he had like 30 something in a
dude,
row.
39 in a row, dude. That's the most insane streak in
crazy.
Sports,
and
period.
He had the speed record for multiple times. So yeah, it's a tough list to crack. But
that's a good one.
That is tough that he's not in the top. At least your top 5. But still, I love the depth of that answer, and you come very well prepared, and you've done your homework. So.
All right, I got a good one. That was really that was a good one, dude. Favorite dog petting technique?
Favorite dog petting technique?
Yeah. Do you like to go for the butt, the head? Where they jump on you and put your arms around your shoulders and you give them a hug? What's your?
I like the best both hands behind the ears.
Yeah,
scratch pulls behind the ears.
Yeah,
they love that one.
Yeah, I've been digging lately the both hands around the outside of their like quad, their hind legs, and it kind of just getting like a lot of pressure on there, and they're just kind of they're like, oh yeah, it's like the kind of tighter muscles a little bit. They kind of start to lean into it, curl their toes. That's my go-to.
Nice.
No one asked, but I told you anyways.
No, I like it. I could go to my go-to, but you guys just kind of said it for me anyways. I mean, there's not too many, and I only have one dog. I have one dog and two cats, but
even a dog, really.
Real quickly, while we're in this little quick hitters, and as we wrap it up, I'm thinking about your team. I want to hear like a quick, just star spotlight on one of your dogs.
Let's see. So I got a 3-year-old named Luke from the Star Wars litter, which is just him and his sister Leia. He's kind of one of the main guys right now. Always screaming to go. Really, really aggressive male. We had him in the Copper Basin last year as a 2-year-old, and he was pretty much the one that drug us up and over the hump. So it's just like whatever you throw in front of that dog, he's ready to go. He's an awesome dog. Luke.
Shout out to Luke. Let's go.
What is you're a sports guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you NFL at all?
Yeah. I'm pretty obsessed with NFL, NBA, MLB, college basketball.
Who you got for the Super Bowl?
I'm gonna take the Ravens. I think I think it's time Lamar won. I don't think the Bills can stop the run this weekend, and I don't think Kansas City is as good as they have been in the past, and the Ravens are going to run through them and then beat whoever from the NFC.
Okay, I like that. Who's your team?
Seattle Seahawks.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really tough. They fired the coach after 10 wins, and right? Did they fire their coach?
No. New coach this year. We fired Pete Carroll last year and brought in the new guy. Just missed the playoffs.
Oh, okay. But still, 10-win season. Pretty good year for you guys.
You know,
we blew it fully. We're Falcons fans, and it's tough out there. Tough out.
Yeah,
I'm not even gonna grace this podcast with the Falcons.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well,
so yeah. I mean, I think we could go on for a little while, but I feel like we probably could wrap it up as well. Sean, did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, just I think I'd say thanks for joining us. Your schedule is incredibly busy, and so I'm glad you got to join us. And hopefully, this was more of a break than it was some kind of obligation, and to just talk with some bros about dogs and mushing and stuff. And really appreciate your time, and we'll do a little post recording talk as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, this was awesome. Really happy I got the chance to do it with you guys.
Dude, thanks for listening, dude. That's cool. You've other 350.
I love it.
20 or something.
I just devour any mushing related content. So I appreciate you guys continuing to put it out.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah, there's a couple good ones out there.
Mushing Alaska. And we also talk about other places besides Alaska, but mostly it's Alaska themed.